Berry Gordy built the greatest hit factory in music history. But when Michael Jackson walked out the door, he took the magic with him. And what was left behind? Rage, resentment, and lawsuits. Lots of them. Some of the biggest names in soul music people Gordy personally discovered and made famous turned around and took him to court. The question is, why? And what did they find when they started digging? Stay locked in, because by the time we reach number 1, you're going to see Motown and Berry Gordy in a completely different light. Number 10. The Four Tops. For over a decade, Levi Stubbs and the Four Tops were the backbone of the Motown sound, that thunderous voice, those tight harmonies.
When you see me smiling, you know.
Songs like I Can't Help Myself and Reach Out I'll Be There didn't just top charts, they defined an era. Berry Gordy loved them, or at least that's what everyone assumed. But behind the sequined suits and sold-out stages, there was a quiet fury building. When Motown relocated from Detroit to Los Angeles in 1972, the Four Tops refused to make the move, and that refusal came with a price. Gordy, never a man who liked to be told no, essentially let the group's momentum die on the vine. Promotional support evaporated, radio pushes stopped. Albums were shelved without explanation. The Four Tops felt abandoned, deliberately sidelined, because they wouldn't bow to his relocation demand. What followed was a legal dispute over royalties and contractual obligations that lasted years. The group alleged that Motown had failed to fulfill the terms of their agreements while simultaneously blocking them from capitalizing on opportunities elsewhere. They pointed to a pattern we're going to keep seeing in this countdown, where Gordy used contract language to trap
another day, another night.
Artists in arrangements that benefited the label far more than the talent. The settlement terms were kept private.
I long to hold you tight.
But the Four Tops never had another meaningful hit under Motown after the split. Gordy had the machine. Without him pushing that machine,
I'm so lonely.
The music went quiet, and the artist paid the price, literally. But the Four Tops were far from the most bitter case. Wait until you hear what one of Gordy's original hitmakers discovered about where their money actually went.
When you see me smiling, you know.
Number 9. Mary Wells was Motown's very first superstar, before Diana Ross, before Stevie Wonder. Before the Jacksons ever set foot in Hitsville, USA, there was Mary Wells.
Nothing you can buy could make me feel.
Recording My Guy in 1964 and handing Berry Gordy his first #1 pop hit. She was 21 years old, and she had no idea what she'd signed away. When Wells turned 21, she discovered something that changed everything.
I gave my guy my word of honor.
Under Michigan law, she had the right to void contracts she'd signed as a minor, and she did exactly that. She walked away from Motown at the peak of her fame,
Away from my guy.
signing with 20th Century Fox Records, believing she was finally free, finally in control. But freedom, it turned out, had a ceiling. Motown retained control of her Motown masters. Every song she'd recorded, every hit she'd made, My Guy, You Beat Me to the Punch. Two lovers Berry Gordy still owned them, and he made sure she felt that.
Nothing you can do.
Promotion of her back catalogue continued without her participation or meaningful financial benefit.
Make me untrue to my guy.
When she attempted to revisit her contractual history and challenge the royalty accounting, Gordy's legal team was ready.
Nothing you can buy could make
The legal battle that followed was a brutal education in the fine print of the music business.
me feel alive to my guy.
Wells claimed she had been systematically underpaid, that the accounting methods Motown used made it nearly impossible for artists to ever see.
I gave my guy my word of honor.
Significant royalties regardless of how many records they sold. She died in 1992, largely broke, fighting cancer with musicians holding benefit concerts just to help cover her medical bills.
Sticking to my guy like a stamp to a letter, like birds of a...
The woman who gave Motown its first #1 died without ever being made whole. And that accounting system she complained about,
Stick together, I'm telling you from the start, I can't...
it would come up again and again and again. In fact, the next artist on our list discovered something even deeper buried in those books.
My God.
If you enjoyed this video, we invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update, and the real stories behind the music that built the world we live in. Don't miss the next one. We will see you there. Back to the countdown.
It's a matter of opinion, I think it's right.
Number 8. Gladys Knight. Gladys Knight and the Pips didn't arrive at Motown as unknowns. They came in with a track record, with soul credentials, earned the hard way on the Chitlin circuit. And Berry Gordy knew exactly what he had when he signed them.
Because neither one of us.
But knowing your value and being paid your value are two very different things at Motown Records. Knight and the Pips delivered hit after hit. I heard it through the grapevine.
And it's gotten to the point.
Which Gordy actually held back from releasing because he preferred Marvin Gaye's version. If I Were Your Woman, Neither One of Us.
Well, we just can't
They were consistent, professional, reliable, everything a label boss dreams of.
fake it.
But the relationship turned sour in ways that went beyond creative disagreements. When the group's contract came up for renewal,
Every time I find the nerve
Gladys Knight began asking questions that Motown's accounting department didn't want to answer.
to say I'm leaving.
She wanted to understand exactly how royalty calculations worked. She wanted independent audits. She wanted transparency. And Gordy's organization, which had built an almost impenetrable wall around its financial operations, pushed back hard. Knight ultimately left Motown in 1973,
Sing ourselves together.
signing with Buddha Records, and almost immediately scored her biggest hit ever with Midnight Train to Georgia. It won a Grammy.
Just one more try.
It went to #1, and it happened without Berry Gordy. The legal dispute that followed her departure centered on claims of withheld royalties and the failure to properly account for international earnings, a gray area that Motown exploited across dozens of artists.
I guess neither one of us.
Knight was vocal about it. She spoke publicly in ways that other artists who had signed non-disclosure agreements couldn't.
Lord knows it's only me.
And what she described was a system not an accident, but a deliberate system designed to keep artists underpaid.
Can I say?
The next name on this list? He experienced that system from the inside, and he had receipts.
Wants to be the first to say.
Number 7. Marvin Gaye's relationship with Berry Gordy was unlike any other on this list. It was personal. It was complicated.
So good to meet my baby.
Gaye married Gordy's sister Anna. He was family, and that made the betrayal when it came cut even deeper. For years,
Come take control.
Gaye was Motown's most artistically ambitious act. He fought Gordy for the right to record What's Going On, an album Gordy initially called the worst thing I've ever heard.
Make love tonight. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Gaye released it anyway, and it became one of the greatest albums in American music history. But winning that battle didn't change the war.
And mine. Soon we'll be making it, honey. Oh,
Gaye's financial situation was a disaster throughout the 1970s. Divorce settlements, tax obligations,
I'll be feeling fine. You're my medicine.
and a royalty structure that paid him a fraction of what his record sales should have generated left him in perpetual debt to the IRS, to creditors,
Helps to relieve.
and ironically to Motown itself. The label used artist advances and recoupment clauses to essentially keep artists financially tethered,
That feeling. I want sexual healing.
unable to leave without owing money they couldn't repay.
Baby.
When Gaye finally escaped to Columbia Records in 1981,
Let's make love tonight.
The legal battle over his Motown departure involved disputed accounting going back nearly a decade.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. 'Cause you do it right.
Gay alleged that Motown had manipulated the recoupment process, charging expenses back to his account in ways that made it look like he owed
Makes me feel so fine.
label money, when the opposite may have been true. He never fully resolved those disputes before his death in 1984.
Feeling, I want sexual healing.
What Gay's case revealed was something particularly dark, the way Motown used the family relationship to keep him compliant for years longer than pure business logic might have.
Healing is good.
Gordy leveraged personal loyalty to protect financial arrangements that were quietly devastating.
Healing, baby, is good.
And the artist who comes next on our list, they experienced something almost identical, but their fight got even more public.
Stronger and stronger. And when I
If you enjoyed this video, we invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update, and the real stories behind the music that built the world we live in. Don't miss the next one. We will see you there. Back to the countdown.
I can't hold it much longer.
Number 6, The Temptations' 5 Men, matching suits, synchronized steps. The Temptations are one of the most iconic groups in the history of popular music. And their relationship with Berry Gordy was one of the most complicated, layered, and ultimately explosive in Motown history. The group went through lineup changes, addiction crises, and creative reinventions across 3 decades. Gordy saw them as reliable as workhorses who could be directed, redirected, and packaged for whatever the market needed. But the Temptations saw themselves as artists who deserved a voice in their own careers. That tension never fully resolved. The legal disputes emerged from multiple directions. Former members who had been pushed out of the group challenged their severance arrangements and royalty entitlements. Active members challenged accounting practices, and then there was the name itself. The Temptations, a brand worth millions that Gordy controlled through corporate structures the individual members had never fully understood when they signed their original agreements. Otis Williams, the group's longest-serving member, became the central figure in battles to establish creative and financial rights for the Temptations' legacy. The fights over master recordings, the right to tour under the name, and royalty accounting stretched across years of legal action.
Don't be ashamed. Don't say that.
Williams was explicit in interviews about the way Motown's contracts had been
Don't turn and walk away. I wanna get to know
structured to ensure the label, not the artists, held all the meaningful leverage.
the thing. Just come and look me over.
The Temptations case also exposed something that went beyond money. It was about identity. Who owned the name? Who owned the story? Who got to control how that legacy was presented and monetized going forward? Those were questions that Gordy's original contracts hadn't answered fairly and that courts eventually had to sort out. But even the Temptations battle looks almost clean compared to what happened with the next artist. Because that story involves something Gordy never expected, a paper trail. Number 5, The Miracles, William Mickey Smokey Robinson. Now, Smokey Robinson has never been one to go to war publicly with Berry Gordy.
Care what they say, no.
Their relationship is genuinely warm, and Robinson has been one of Motown's most loyal and vocal defenders over the decades. So why is he on this list?
I don't care what they think if you're leaving.
Because the legal disputes around The Miracles and the aftermath of Robinson's eventual departure reveal something
I'm gonna beg you to stay.
important about how Motown's system trapped even the people Gordy loved most. When Smokey Robinson left The Miracles in 1972 to pursue a solo career,
I don't care what they think.
transition seemed smooth on the surface. But beneath it, the remaining Miracles Billy Griffin, Bobby Rogers, Claudette Rogers Robinson,
I don't care what they say.
and others who had invested years in building that name were left in a contractual situation that didn't reflect their contribution. The group continued,
I don't care what they think.
but the financial architecture of their arrangements with Motown left them in a deeply unequal position relative to Robinson, whose solo deal was significantly more favorable.
They say, I don't care
Members of the post-Smokey Miracles lineup initiated legal action against Motown over royalty,
what they think. If you're leaving, I'm gonna bet
accounting, and the terms of their continued relationship with the label after Robinson's departure.
they think about me, and I don't.
They argued that the transition had been handled in a way that prioritized Gordy's relationship with Smokey over the group's collective financial interests. What made this case unique was the documentation. The Miracles situation produced a more detailed paper record of how Motown's internal
They start to avoid me. I don't
accounting worked, how expenses were allocated, how publishing was handled,
told you so. They tell me you love me.
how the label calculated what it owed versus what it claimed artists still owed the label through recoupment.
Don't let them say we
That documentation would quietly inform how other artists built their legal cases in the years that followed. And speaking of documentation, the next artist on our list walked into court with something that made even Gordy's lawyers nervous, because she had held onto everything. Number 3, the Isley Brothers. The Isley Brothers are one of the most durable acts in music history.
said a prayer, 'cause only God knows what I'm going.
From Shout in 1959 to Between the Sheets in 1983,
Honey, wait, I was gonna tell you. Move this cat, look through.
to collaborations with R. Kelly in the 1990s, they kept reinventing themselves across generations.
Real familiar. Now don't I know you from some.
But their time at Motown, brief as it was, planted seeds of legal conflict that took years to fully flower.
Where a long time ago. No,
The Isleys had been through the industry ringer before Motown. They knew what bad deals looked like.
no, I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like.
So when they signed with Gordy's T-Neck imprint through Motown's distribution network, they thought they had negotiated something fairer, more control,
Know you, brother, very well. No, you're mistaken.
better terms, a partnership rather than pure artist-label subordination. What they found once the relationship soured
Me for somebody else.
was that the fine print told a different story. The legal dispute that followed their departure from the Motown orbit involved claims over royalty,
Ain't you see two men are talking?
accounting, the ownership of master recordings, and the rights to songs that had been recorded but never commercially released, a vault issue that
Told you to get to walking. Now I think
affected dozens of Motown acts. The Isleys alleged that Motown had profited from licensing and publishing arrangements tied to their recordings,
baby's voice. I ran downstairs, looked in the closet, looking for the.
without properly accounting for or sharing those revenues. What made the Isley Brothers' case particularly significant was their willingness to litigate aggressively.
What the hell?
Unlike artists who accepted private settlements and moved on, the Isleys pushed, and their legal team's discovery process
I'm about to catch a case.
produced depositions and financial records that documented Motown's accounting practices in uncomfortable detail.
So I called her mother's house and asked her had she seen my baby.
The case ultimately settled, but the record it created became a reference point for subsequent legal actions against Motown by other artists. It was a building block,
What you want, that's what she said.
and the two cases that come next, they used exactly that foundation, starting with an artist who,
Sexy lady, drive me crazy.
when Gordy underestimated him, walked out with something Gordy never expected to lose.
To have a fit. Oh, it's about to be some.
Number 2, Stevie Wonder turned 21 in 1971, and when he did something that shook Berry Gordy to his core. He stopped recording completely. He He walked away from the studio, let his existing Motown contract expire, and sat in silence productive. Creative silence while every major label in the music industry came courting. Gordy had taken Wonder for granted. He'd signed him as a child prodigy little Stevie Wonder, the 12-year-old genius, and had structured those contracts the way Motown always structured its child artist contracts, with the label holding overwhelming control. Wonder had been a Motown product, a Motown asset. But when he grew up, he refused to remain one. The renegotiation that followed was unprecedented in Motown history. Wonder's legal team, armed with independent audits of his royalty history, demonstrated that the accounting for his recordings over nearly a decade had left him dramatically underpaid relative to the commercial returns those recordings had generated. They didn't just ask for better terms on future recordings, they demanded retroactive justice for the past. Gordy, facing the genuine possibility of losing the artist, who was at that moment the most critically acclaimed musician in popular music, in the middle of a run that would produce talking book Inner Visions, Fulfillingness First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life, Blinked. Wonder got a deal that was fundamentally different from anything Motown had ever offered. Significant creative control, improved royalty rates, and most critically, ownership of his own master recordings going forward. It was a victory that changed the industry. But it was also a victory built on legal work and financial evidence. Wonder had the documentation, he had the leverage, and he used both without flinching. The artist at number one, they had none of those advantages. They were already gone, pushed out, cast aside, and left with nothing but a lawsuit and the truth, and what they uncovered in that lawsuit. Gordy never fully recovered from it. Number one, the Jackson 5. When the Jackson 5 left Motown in 1975, Berry Gordy told the press it was an amicable split. The Jacksons, newly signed to Epic Records, told a different story, and the legal battle that followed Michael Jackson's departure from the label was, without question, the most consequential, the most damaging, and the most revealing dispute in Motown's history. The Jackson family had grown up inside the Motown machine. Joe Jackson had negotiated their original deal. And like virtually every artist who ever sat across from Berry Gordy's lawyers, he had signed terms that looked favorable on the surface and were devastating in practice. The royalty rates were low. The publishing arrangements were controlled almost entirely by Motown. And the accounting, that same accounting system that Mary Wells had complained about, that Marvin Gaye had challenged, that Stevie Wonder had documented, was applied to the Jacksons with the same ruthless consistency. When the Jacksons left for Epic, Gordy's initial response was to claim that they had breached their contract and to threaten legal action that would block them from recording elsewhere. It was a tactic he had used before the threat of litigation as a tool of control. But the Jacksons had CBS Records' legal and financial resources behind them now, and they weren't backing down. The counterclaims that emerged from the Jackson side of the dispute laid out in precise detail the royalty underpayments accumulated across the Jackson 5's entire Motown career. They documented the publishing arrangements that had cost the family millions. They challenged the accounting methodology that had kept the Group 5 of the most commercially successful artists Motown had ever produced in a state of near-permanent recoupment, as if they still owed the label money despite years of massive hit records. And then there was the matter of the masters. Berry Gordy retained ownership of every Jackson 5 recording made at Motown. I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, I'll Be There. Michael Jackson would spend the rest of his life acquiring other artists' masters. He famously purchased the Beatles publishing catalogue, but he would never own his own childhood recordings. Gordy held those until his death. That wound never healed. The legal settlement was structured in ways that kept the specifics private, as Motown settlements always were. But the damage to Gordy's reputation was not containable. The Jackson dispute, combined with the cascade of lawsuits from artists across the previous decade, painted a portrait of Motown Records not as a dream factory, but as a machine built to extract maximum value from black artists while returning minimum financial benefit to the people who created that value. Berry Gordy built something genuinely extraordinary. The music was real. The artistry was undeniable. But the system he built underneath that music, the contracts, the accounting, the corporate structures that trapped artists in arrangements they didn't fully understand, that system told a different story. And once Michael Jackson walked out that door, enough people started telling it that the truth finally couldn't be buried anymore. The Motown sound changed the world, but the Motown business changed the law, because artist after artist, lawsuit after lawsuit, forced the music industry to confront practices that had been quietly devastating careers for decades. Every royalty audit provision in a modern recording contract, every artist ownership clause, every independent accounting right, those didn't come from goodwill. They came from people like the ones on this list who fought and sometimes lost, so that the artists who came after them could win. That's the real Motown legacy, and now you know it.